Welcome to the Rodeo Wagon Podcast, brought to you by the Western Edge app and produced by Cosmic Cowboys Productions. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you go and follow our great partners over at Sombrero Brands, Cowboys Finest Cowboy Hats, Bluegrass Engravings, JM Ranch Snap Racks, and Ranch Life. Tell everybody a little bit about, your docuseries. That was kind of a big thing that you're doing with your Cosmic Cowboys Productions.
Right. So about late 2021, we started producing some bull rides. One of my best friends growing up, Dustin Muncie, rode in the PRCA for a couple of years and then kind of got banged up and just did it here and there, didn't like do it full time. Did a couple summer runs, a couple of years, and always heard about them, never went on them. Have been to hundreds of rodeos though with them, all over Florida and Southeast US and stuff like that, but never like went with them for like a couple weeks or a month at a time, just like weekend trips. And it was like our second or third rodeo. I started to meet some of the guys that were at our events, and I had met a bunch of guys before, but never like got to talk to them and hang out with them. Sure. And this time I was part of the producing side of it for me was filming it. I'd make promo videos and, film the rides and everything like that, make clips of it, the wipeouts and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I've always loved documentaries, and now that I have camera access and learning camera, that was like the wall, I guess I was like worried about. Like I always wanted to do something like documentaries. I always thought that'd be cool as hell, just to follow people around, film them, just hang out with them, just kind of just go with them and hang out and tell their story.
Sure.
Originally, I just wanted to be like a cameraman on like nature documentaries.
Cool. Dude. Did you do, what did that look like? I guess, cart before the horse type of a deal. What did that look like coming into all of this within your like background? So like before you got into following bull riders, going down the rodeo trail, like how did you kind of get into the videography?
Yeah.
Space and a lot of that.
Kind of funny. After high school, I went to the Coast Guard. I went to Cape May, New Jersey. I was there 5 weeks, got hurt, got medically discharged, came back. I was like 18. I was like, well, I had planned for the last 2 years of high school to go to the Coast Guard. And, I wanted to be in the reserves and just kind of work on the water somewhere. Okay. And then like be in the Coast Guard reserves as well. Like in Clearwater here in Florida or something like that, where I'm from. And I started doing flooring. I worked in a warehouse. One of my dad's best friends owned a flooring company. He did like flooring for apartment complexes and condos and hotels. So I started working in the warehouse there, like 18, 19, and eventually worked my way into the office doing estimating. And I did contract flooring estimating for 5 years up until late 2019, right before COVID actually. Got in a little tiff, we'll say, with my boss. He was like my godfather basically, but also my boss. So, there was a lot of things going on and so forth. And basically they gave me the ultimatum, hey, we can fire you, or hey, you can say you're resigning and you can leave. That way it doesn't look bad on you like you got fired. They kind of
yeah, sure.
Nice. They're still helping me out, and they said, you give us as a reference, we'll give you a reference. This just isn't working out. So I did that. I had a little money in my 401k over the 5 years. They had matched it. I'd put it in. It was a couple grand. So when I got that, I was just like, man, I had never even touched a camera before, never owned a camera. I had GoPros and been like snorkeling and scuba diving with GoPros and like hog hunting, fishing, just doing stuff like that, and I'd always loved that, but that was right. All I knew about them, right? And even then I had like this was 5-6 years ago when I still had iPhone 8 or something like that, like that didn't even have a good camera,
Yeah, so right.
Really had nothing. And then I started with actually my roommate, one of my roommates I live with now, one of my good friends, Sammy. We started doing like little advertisements for people. Like this was late 2019. was doing like I'd make people websites or make them little logos off Photoshop and like stuff like that. And I've always been big on video games. Been playing video games my whole life, almost daily. And I started making Call of Duty clips. I
Oh,
wasn't.
okay.
I had money and I was like doing like this stuff for like side money to pay my rent. And I really didn't. I was just playing video games most of the day. And I would record like Call of Duty matches and stuff like that. And I downloaded this software that was a free editing software called
Okay.
Filmora. Very basic. It was a free version that if you exported it, had the like a watermark on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I started just doing that. Like literally, it was just like cut, edit, like very simple. I watched some YouTube videos. I was just like trying to make video game content, basically.
That's gotten really popular too. That's
Oh
really
yeah, man!
popular.
If I would have stuck with it back then, I'm so mad. Which actually, coincidentally, Darius, the kid that I run Cosmic Cowboys with, is just recently went full time Madden streamer, content creator. So,
Well,
um,
you play Halo at all?
yeah, back in the day,
Not anymore.
not really, not so much
That's
anymore.
like the only thing I play.
Yeah, I still have it on my PC. I
Oh,
bought
you do?
the Master Chief collection where it had like all the
Okay.
games.
Yeah, yep. I have that. You need to
Yeah.
get Infinite and you play a little bit.
Oh, all right. Yeah. I haven't
Me,
played it in a while. We
me and
we
my
like
cousin.
during COVID, we went on like a 2 month kick where we played like all the Halo games and
Oh
then
yeah.
went back
Yep.
from there.
Man, back in the day, like growing up, that was a thing. And then I didn't play for a long time, but my cousin, he kind of still played a little bit. And then a few years ago, I got the Xbox X, and so every once in a while we'll get on there and play
Yeah.
the new one. But sometimes we'll play the old one too. But
That's
it's
the thing.
crazy. You look at the graphics, like it's hard to play old ones because like at the time that was cutting edge, and it looked
Yeah.
great. But now you have like a brand new freaking,
Like a
you
game like
know,
Red Dead Redemption or something where it's like
yeah, high
land.
def, everything. It's
Yeah. There's in the Halo on the PC version. I don't know about maybe on the Xbox X version, but you can switch from the old graphics to the new revamped graphics
oh,
just by clicking a button. Like you hit start and it
yeah,
like will switch real time the graphics of wherever you're at. So you
interesting.
can like look in the area, old, new, old, new.
Huh.
Um, Something cool. That was cool. We were just doing that, flipping through the whole time. We were just flipping the graphics back and forth. But
Anyway, so that
yeah,
took you off a little bit,
no,
but
you're fine. Good way to take off. Yeah, so I started making video game content like that, and then I started like putting in music and sound effects, and I was just like, man, this isn't that hard. Like really, like realistically,
yeah,
I learned it in like a couple weeks, a week really, just off of YouTube videos, and not even really because that software was pretty new at the time and it's very basic. And I still use it to this day, but now it's over the years they've revamped it so many times and upgraded it to where it competes with the better softwares now. But it was huge in getting me introduced in it because the only softwares I knew about were like Premiere Pro, DaVinci, Final Cut Pro, which are very complicated. Final Cut Pro is simpler, but it's still very complicated, really, for someone getting entry level.
sure.
Especially because for someone like me on a software like Premiere Pro, I wouldn't use 90% of the stuff they have on there. Like I just wouldn't use it. I don't have the camera equipment that translates into that. I don't have the audio equipment. I don't have all the adjustments that needed. Like it just was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
So I started learning that. And then I was friends with this girl who went to Full Sail University. And I'm not sure if you know what that is, but it's a
Hmm.
very well-known school down here in Florida. And there's some other ones in the US, but they basically just do film, photography, graphic design, graphic
Okay.
arts. They put people like you go there
It's like
now.
a trade school for.
Yeah, it's like a trade school, but it's a college still to some
Yeah. Right.
extent.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But like it's very, and it looks like you ever seen like the Google offices, how it's all crazy looking and like they have,
Uh-huh.
that's what
Yeah.
this looks like. Like the
Oh.
campus also like crazy. I guess now it's come out like it's kind of like a money scam because people like me, you just learn off YouTube completely. You know what I mean? So it kind
Yeah.
of sucks. But at the time, this was 2019. So 5 years ago at the time, it was like very well known. And I asked her, she was there for um, like more like play production type stuff, like
Okay.
theater plays. And I was like, well, do you have anyone there that like has a camera? I was like, I'm starting to make some content and I'll have some questions about cameras. And then at the time, I was also creating like a archery brand. We called it SEBOs. It was my nickname is SEBO
Uh-huh.
for Sebastian, and we just threw a W on there, and it was like
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
SEBW.
See bows. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I still have some. I still have all the stuff for it, and I haven't. One day I'll revamp it, but it was my introduction into like just content and brand and stuff like that.
Right.
And
Was
basically, I
that
was gonna.
mostly hog hunting?
No, it was actually all based around archery specifically.
Yeah, but like what were you, was it just like
Uh, the
competition
idea
archery or hunting? Like,
the idea behind it
yeah.
was introduction and teaching people and introducing
Oh,
people.
okay, okay. Sure.
So actually, kind of leeway into how I got into some of this stuff. Back in when I got out of the Coast Guard, I worked at Dick's Sporting Goods for a year before I started the flooring company. And when I worked at Dick's Sporting Goods, I was working. I've been bow hunting my whole life, and I started working in the. They had an archery department there at Dick's. They have a whole booth with the
Yeah.
bow press. They have everything. Well, there used to be an archery technician position at Dick's Sporting Goods. And that guy worked there. He'd come in at least once or twice a week. This was at all Dick's Sporting Goods. He'd come in there once or twice a week and work on bows. People could
Sure.
drop off their bows there. Well, most Dick's Sporting Goods stopped it at the time I was going in there because no one knew how to do it. Like it was just like it's hard to pay a guy 15, 16 bucks an hour to specifically work on bows for 4 hours a week or whatever. So they started letting me because people would come in and ask, and I could tell them I could work on their bow. I knew how to work on bows and stuff like that. I can draw strings, tie peepholes, everything like that. And he was like, if you want to take some of your shift and work on the bows, work on the bows. I was like, okay. In doing that, I like taught a lot of people. I helped a lot of people set up their first bow. I took them in the archery lane,
Yeah.
taught them shooting. Like I
Tune it
set
up
up,
and everything for them. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people. My friend Sammy, I hooked him up with his first bow, got him his first deer with a bow, the whole 9 yards. So um, the idea was to create a brand around that. And it was going to be like, I still to this day, I have like a list of like 160 5 to 10 minute long tip videos. They're written out, like the name of it, what I need, the equipment I need for it, like everything. And in the process of this, I meet Eric, who is the gentleman who went to Full Sail. The girl I knew was like, yeah, I know this guy. He works in the film production here. He not works in, but he's going for film production. I was like, oh, that's perfect. And this guy, what at the time I thought was like the greatest camera in the world, which still is. I still have it to this day. My little camera, the little Canon I have, he had one of those. And I end up meeting this guy like at a bar in downtown Orlando or something, and we're like talking. He's a crazy Puerto Rican dude, super thick accent. He moved over here when he was like 22 and learned English. Super thick accent, crazy guy. He reminds me of like every film guy on a movie where he's just like super dramatic and crazy. Um, and he started showing me he knew how to edit. He used Premiere Pro. He knew how to do everything. Like he went to school for like working on like Marvel movies and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like they do high scale shit. I'm like, look, I'm just trying to like set up a camera and one camera angle. I show, like little videos. We go through this whole saga of like a month of like he's showing me stuff. We start filming some videos. It was in December of 2019. So I actually went hunting a couple times, filmed a couple hunts. I was just kind of like stocking up on footage basically. And at the start of the next year, I was gonna kind of revamp it because it was like in the middle of hunting season at that time. So it would have been kind of hard to, kick it then. And through this, I eventually meet. I get on the only other podcast I've done besides this one now. I meet this lady at a like a little convention, like a little starter company meeting convention thing.
Sure.
And I told her about my SEBO's brand and everything I was doing. And she brings me on her podcast. And I go on this podcast. It's at a local college, and it's like her and 7 college kids learning TV production, radio production, stuff like that. So they're like doing the podcast. They got
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 camera angles. They got audio. They do everything. It's me and her sitting at a table with like a guest speaker, which is one of the college kids. And they just asked me about like my life, the SEBASTAIN brand, everything like that. I think the podcast is still on Facebook actually. Um, and one of the kids there was Darius, who I own Cosmic Cowboys with now. And he does the Madden content stream and everything like that. I don't think you've met him. Kenny met him the first time in Vegas.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. I wasn't up there. Yeah,
yeah,
Kenny went down.
it's
So
it's me, PJ, and Darius.
I don't think
And
I've met either one of them.
no, I don't think you've met them. No,
Yeah.
no, just Kenny's met them.
Yep.
And Kenny met them when we went to his house down in the Keys. They
Oh,
both,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, they went
Yeah, I'm
back.
jealous. I never even went and did that.
It was sweet, man. It was sweet. We just ate raw fish every day. That was the best part.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. But so I do the podcast and I leave and I'm walking down this hallway and he comes out of the door and like he's like, yo, runs me down. I was like, what's up? And he just walks up to me and he's a couple years younger than me at the time. He was like 20, I think.
Yep.
This was 5 years ago. And he goes, I want to do something. I was like, what do you mean? He was like whatever you're doing. He's like, I want to do something. He's like, let's work. Like, I want to film. I want to work with you. I want to do stuff. Whatever you're doing, I want to do it. And I was like, I ain't got no money, bro, to pay you or anything like that. If you just listen to the podcast, but sure. And he's like, let's do it. Got his number. That was 5 years ago. We still work together, talk together every day today. He was a huge part in Cosmic Cowboys, which so kind of long story leading up to it, but me, him, and Eric eventually I start looking around for video work. I've always been a salesman, really, at the end of the day. Every job I've ever had, I've just always been good at talking and networking and stuff like that. And I end up talking to like these random guys at a lunch who did a thing called Red Carpet Mondays, where every Monday they had a networking event at a different like restaurant or here or there. And like this week it was real estate and next week it was construction and this week it was that. And that's all it was. It was like 50 to 150, 200 people networking events every Monday. And this is December of 2020 going into February. I get us this gig. He's basically going to pay us, a couple $100 to come out every Monday and just film these events, like little recap videos. And we start doing that for a month. I start meeting people. We got a couple big jobs lined up. We got a bunch of things in the pipeline for 2020. Lo and behold, a month later, like February, COVID hits, shutdown happens. Everyone immediately cancels all the events. We're filming live public events, just completely out the window. That happens. Basically, all the little websites, all the little companies I was working for, doing everything for it's all shut down. Had nothing. Started collecting unemployment. Darius left it. I don't remember if he left or quit. Something happened and he left Publix. He was working at Publix at the time. He didn't have a job. He starts a moving company, literally just off like one of those apps where you like sign up and like they give you leads or whatever.
Yeah.
And still actually just stopped doing it recently full time to do streaming full time. But he had been doing it for the past 5 years too. He goes there, Eric, he kind of goes off on the deep end a little, kind of, gets down on himself, depressed. And at PJ, I was living with PJ. PJ is the dark-haired guy. He was with me in a lot of videos. And we were living together and started collecting unemployment. He was working for the city of Arvindale, so he was out of work for like a couple months. Eventually brought him back, but I was just like, man, I didn't really know what to do or where to go. They were sending you $800 a week cash. You know what I mean? I was getting unemployment. I was like, okay. I bought a little camper. Dude, it's a 10-foot 1969 Scotty Saros. Bought it for $300 and put like $1,000 into it. Took it down to the Keys like August of 2020. Um, it was in 100 degrees of weather. AC worked great on it. I had a window unit that sat on a stool on the outside of the camper, and a
Uh-huh.
funnel just hooked up to the window,
Nice.
just pump AC, and that thing would
Yeah.
get cold. And I was down there, and I was like, I think I'm just gonna move down here with this camper. And I started like looking around at places, and there was a guy who owned a jet ski company, and he was like, I'm about to open up in like in a month or so. He was like, look, I'll pay you $20 an hour and give you a place to park your camper, because I told him what I was trying to do.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'll pay you $20 an hour and give you a place to park your camper if you want to move down here and work for me. Just literally like doing jet ski tours.
Sure.
He was like, you got to fuel the jet skis up in the morning, and then take people on tours all day driving a jet ski. And I was like, all right, like that's a sweet gig. I was like, sweet. And so like I set that up for like a month from then I was gonna leave. And in that month, I got a phone call from an old flooring guy I worked with, saying that this company he started working for was about to start back up again after COVID, and they're looking for an estimator. And I was like, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. They told me they're going to give me a decent pay. And I was like, okay. I did it for about a month. I had to drive like an hour away to the office. There was no one ever in the office. Everyone was working remote in the country. And I was just like, yeah, I have a nicer computer setup than this one here in this office. I don't talk to anyone all day. Like, why am I driving an hour to sit here? And I basically said that to the people, or to the people working, the HR people, whatever you want to call it. They're like, oh, well, what if we need to talk to you? I was like, call me. This is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I get like in some companies, for sure there needs to be hands-on stuff, but like in the position I was in there, I was like, I don't need to be here. So I started looking for remote jobs, which kind of segues into a huge part of this. I get a remote job with a company called International Flooring, or Certified Finishes. International was the other company I worked for. Certified Finishes. And they let me work remote, gave me a good salary. And it was literally hey, we're going to put jobs on a calendar, have those jobs done before the due date, and we won't bother you, more or less.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Right.
I had to talk to them almost every day, but it was I didn't click for me after the first month or two. I was like, oh man, I can do all of next week's jobs and be off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, sure.
if I wanted to. And I was like, okay. So I started doing that slowly, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, the whole time I just wanted to get back into the videography and film.
Right.
I felt like I was that close just to doing it full time. And like, I had all the setup, and, I was like right there. And then COVID hit. As a lot of people, I think, you just kind of out of your hands.
Yeah, for sure.
Weird thinking back, and that's been 4 years ago, but,
Man, that is crazy. Yeah,
so
that was
wild.
wild. That was a wild year for sure.
Yeah.
Everything shut down immediately.
Yeah. And when was it? So this would have been like 2021 now. Dustin hits me up. He tells me he's about to start producing bull rides. I was like, hey, let me know. I want to get back into making videos. I was like, oh, we can work out a deal, hook you up, whatever.
Hey there, folks. I want to tell you about my favorite cowboy hat brand, Sombrero Brands. As a professional bull rider, I know how important it is to have a hat that not only looks good, but can withstand the toughest rides out there. And that's exactly what Sombrero Brands delivers. Their hats are custom fitted and shaped to perfection, with a level of attention to detail that's hard to find these days. But what really sets Sombrero Brands apart is the fact that they're a family-owned and operated business. Mark and Kendall Holler, the owners, and their daughter Sarah, who's only 13 but already a hat-making prodigy, are all passionate about their craft. They know what it takes to make a cowboy hat that can stand up to anything the rodeo circuit can throw at it. And get this, the founder's grandfather, Polly Holler, was born and raised at South Camp on the 4-6's ranch. These folks have got cowboy blood running through their veins, and it shows in every hat they make. That's why I'm proud to have Sombrero Brands as a major sponsor for my podcast, the Rodeo Wagon Podcast. So if you're in the market for a hat that's tough enough to handle anything the rodeo throws at it, give Sombrero Brands a try. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. What's up, everybody? I'm thrilled to announce a fantastic partnership between the Rodeo Wagon Podcast and Rodeo Life Official. Rodeo Life isn't just a coffee brand, it's a veteran-owned business that epitomizes the principles of hard work, dedication, and perseverance in all their products. As an avid consumer of Rodeo Life coffee, I am proud to align myself with a company that mirrors my values and resonates with our audience. Supporting this veteran-owned business is not only a testament to our shared ethos, but also a way to give back to those who have served our country. This partnership promises exciting content, collaborations, and surprises for all our listeners and the rodeo community. You can anticipate special episodes featuring the Rodeo Life experts and even a chance to win some Rodeo Life merchandise. We look forward to this journey with Rodeo Life and the enriching experience it will bring our audience. Join us as we venture into this partnership, fueled by a passion for rodeo and a great cup of Rodeo Life coffee. Stay tuned for more exciting updates and the amazing things to come from the Rodeo Wagon Podcast and Rodeo Life Official. Make sure you go to rodeolifeofficial.com and check out all their sweet merch. Are you searching for that perfect statement? Look no further than Bluegrass Engraving, where creativity meets craftsmanship. Their specialty lies in creating custom buckles and dip cans, but that's not all. They redefine elegance with an exquisite line of jewelry, and for those who appreciate a little flair, check out their engraved guns collection. At Bluegrass Engraving, they don't just create products, they craft experiences. Visit Bluegrass Engraving today and let them turn your visions into engraved realities. Bluegrass Engraving, where artistry meets authenticity.
He's like, all right, well, for this first one, how about I buy you a camera for like $400 or $500, and then you film me the videos and film the event. And I was like, that's perfect, because I didn't have the money at the time to buy the camera, but I'll do this. So he bought me that same little camera that Eric had, that I originally had started on like a year or two before that. And I buy that. First rodeo was in Wauchula, Florida. Cool little event. It was one night deal. It was like 10,000 added or something like that. And they did the first one was 50,000 team championship, which they all eventually did. This last one wasn't. The last one was 10,000 added. The first one we did, it's teams of three, kind of like a Calcutta almost.
Yep.
So the kids who win it are Cullen Telfer, Tristan Hutchings, and the third one's going to slip my mind, but it's a kid I've met since then. But Cullen Telfer and Tristan Hutchings were two of the three. Cullen Telfer is one of Dustin's, my friend who produced the rodeos, longtime friends.
Okay.
Grew up here in Central Florida, a couple years younger than us. Dustin's the same age as me. He started bull riding when he was like 15 or 16, and Dustin was, in his later teens. So he started, like, Dustin took him in, kind of showed him the ropes. He went on a couple summer trips with Dustin, like when he was, young, like 17, he was out there out west riding around in minivans with this guy, and everything. And I've known him ever since then. I lived with Dustin for a year. Cullen lived with us over the summer. I've known the kid forever, pretty close. So they win that event, and I was like, oh, shit. I knew he was good, you know what I mean? But, like, I just never thought, like, he's just so young. I just never had kept up with it, realized you just don't really see it, you know what I mean? Like, because it's either you make it to the NFR, like, you just don't even know. But people make full-time livings otherwise, But I just didn't know. I was clueless. I just didn't really know how the system worked. I didn't know how the PRCA worked, the money. I didn't know how nothing like that worked. I'd heard Dustin talk about it for years, but never really understood it,
Yeah, because you were pretty much outside of the rodeo world for the most part, outside of.
I've been to 100 rodeos before I started filming them, all to party. Almost,
Yeah.
like, actually, you know what I mean? Like, I went
Right.
there, I would get my companion pass. I'd go sit in the back, drink beers with whoever else wasn't watching the rodeo, or, I'd go just watch him ride or something, watch a couple people ride, and then hang out in the car. And then, I was just there for the fun,
Yeah.
I never rodeoed. I never did anything like that, I've been around it.
So really, with that event really kind of set the stage in kind of getting connected to the right people. And
it's funny because I didn't even know it until later the next year, because so Cullen and Tristan win that event. That's in October 2021. New Year's weekend of that year, we have a huge event in Ocala, Florida.
Yep.
It's at the World Equestrian Center. It's a 2-night event, $100,000 cash prize.
I remember that one.
Same concept, three, teams of three. We sell that one out, 3,500 each night. There's people out the door. We had to turn away. It was a whole ordeal, but great rodeo. Lo and behold, there was a couple Brazilian guys that ended up winning it, but Hayes Waite, another gentleman I've come to follow and document, won high marked ride there.
Okay.
Didn't know who he was at the time either. I didn't know him or Tristan. So fast forward a month or two after, I finally got some camera equipment. I've done now the 2 rodeos. I kind of understand it a little bit, this and that. And I called Dustin. I was like, hey, man, who should I talk to about following someone around this summer? I was like, everyone talks about it. You've talked about it for years. I know the stories about it. I've heard the stories. I know what happened. I know what they do. And when people tell you about it, I think you don't grasp it really. You can tell someone that they drive every day, 5 to 12 hours a day, ride that night, ride every night. And they do that for months on end, with almost some guys taking no breaks. Maybe they go home for like 1 weekend or something.
Yeah, right.
And even just now saying it, then it seems kind of casual. Like you can't really grasp it. It's weird. It's almost like a weird thing. Like it's like saying, I went to my 9 to 5 every day for the past 2 months. Yeah, well, then you went home and went to sleep and then went back the next day. And then you had the weekends off and then, this and that. Like these guys, it's like a 24-hour job, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And the wear and tear on the road like that it's unless you do it, you'll never really understand. It's crazy. People will be like, thinking that 4 or 5 hours is a long trip. And I'm like, dude, that's like a freaking skip, like try 22 hours straight. Not stopping.
Exactly what you said. I was like, I'm not going to grasp this until I see it. I was like, I got to see it. I got to see it. I got to do it. It sounds crazy. And also, why has no one filmed any of this? And some have. There's a couple like YouTube videos. There was one of
sure.
The best one was one on some bronc riders a couple years ago.
Okay.
But they kind of self-filmed it, GoPros, phones, stuff like that.
There hasn't been a whole lot that's been professionally produced,
right,
or even produced to a mediocre level. Most of it's low quality, just no organization to it. So
right,
that actually what you're doing is pretty cool because there's not a whole lot out there that's even like it.
And another part of the problem I have was on the phone call with Dustin. I was like, who should I follow around?
That's important.
He tells me, he's like, Cullen. He's like, he's like, you've known him for you. I was like, oh yeah, I was like, is he going? He's like, yeah. I was like, see, I just that disconnect, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I know the kid, I know his parents' name, everything. I just didn't know. I didn't know it was like that level, that time, just, it had been years, just weird. I was like, okay. I call him up. He's a buddy of mine. Talk to him. This is like probably January, February of 2021 or 2022. I'm sorry, 2022. And because the Ocala deal was 21 to 22. Yeah. So this is like a month or two later. I call him up and I was like, hey, this summer, I want to follow you around for a week. I was like, you tell me. I was like, let's figure it out. He's like, honestly, I'm going to have no idea where I'll be until like a month before, maybe. And I was like, all right, I'll plan accordingly. So for like 3 months, I did like worst case scenario planning of like, okay, I'm going to tell him from this date to this date, where are you going to be? What rodeo? Where am I going to have to go? Yada, yada. Like, how am I going to ride with him? What's going to happen? What changes, is he going to, because sometimes these guys will ride around, then like fly across the country, fly back. Ride around. My budget was like $800. Like, how can I make this work? Like literally.
Well, and you're not cutting a check. So those, the guys that are doing that, like they're flying, they're winning. That's why they're doing that.
Exactly.
That's their source of income. For you following them, especially if you're upfronting the money, like you're not just going to win a big, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 check. That's going to cover that flight.
I have no chance of making money on this unless I like sell some footage while I'm out there or something.
Or you work the back pins and you find a way.
It was so short notice and what eventually became of it. So he tells me like, I eventually go and meet him out the end of June 2022. But leading up to this, probably like a month or so before, he sends me a picture of like a handwritten note. I actually put it in the documentary where he put the dates. It's just like Reno, Nevada, 6/26 here. And you start looking at it and they're all in different states and they're like across the corner and like there's no rhyme or rhythm really to like, it's not like a circle or like there's nothing. It's just, and they all have asterisks, like half of them had asterisks next to them where he's like, these might change. And I'm like, I was like, God, it would be different if I had like, a production, like a credit card where I could expect, okay, if I got to fly here, drive here, whatever, but I've got to like once I get out there, I still got to somehow get back,
Yeah.
and I'm perfectly fine with sleeping on the floor or whatever in a car, trunk, I don't give a shit. So I'm talking to him and like a month before he sends me the list. And then like 2 weeks before he sends me like a final list. And now at this point, I got it set to where we're going to fly into Las Vegas and drive up to Reno to the first rodeo. The plane tickets were cheap into Las Vegas. We could rent a car on Toro and we were just going to go up. 2 weeks before he hits me up and is like, I'm sorry, we're going to go to Las Vegas, get picked up by them and go to Reno and ride with Cullen. 2 weeks before, he's like, hey man, I'm actually going to be riding with two other guys in a Capri. And I was like, okay, what's going on? The two other guys end up being Hayes Wade and Tristan Hutchins. At the time, I was just kind of like, dude, I'm stressing one, and I'm trying to do all this. I'm trying to follow him around. The idea was to follow him around for like 7 to 10 days, go to all the rodeos, kind of just sideline them the whole time. Nothing really overproduced. Just talk to him. He's a buddy of mine. Just like hang out. Like just, I don't want to overproduce nothing. I don't want to stick a camera in his face,
Right.
If he's not riding good, I don't want to ask, why are you sucking? Shit like that. And it's my first time, so I'm trying to juggle this,
Yeah.
And so he goes, yeah, we'll be riding with them. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, are they cool if I do them too? Fuck it. If they're going to be there all 10 days, I might as well get, all three of you guys out. Because the idea was just like a 15-minute interview.
Okay.
I was going to do this whole 7-10 days to get like 15 to 30-minute interview with like some B-roll of like stuff going on. And it was just going to be them talking and me talking to them.
Sure.
Fast forward to the date, we go out there to Reno, or we end up having to fly into Las Vegas, rent a car. We rent like this little hatchback Honda something. I don't even know what it was, but it was a hatchback. And it was me and my buddy PJ. Same thing. Like I was like, hey man, I can't pay you. I can't do nothing. I was like, but I'll get the rental car if you want to ride with me for a week and help me drive and shit and film, you'll have to buy your plane ticket though. I can't. I was like, but it'd be like a week-long vacation. We'll get to go travel around. It'd be fun. And he agreed to it. And he was like, all right, cool. Bought his plane ticket. We both flew out there, rented. And so we were supposed to go to Reno. They call us like the day before. Reno's out. We're going to, I forget where even it was. Because we were going to go from Reno to Greeley, Colorado.
Okay.
It's like a big triangle up to Reno, over to Greeley.
Yep.
And he tells us it's like 2 days before. And I'm like, the plane ticket's bought. We're going to be there. Now we're flying in on like a Thursday. The Reno rodeo was supposed to be Friday. And then we were going to head to Greeley for the Greeley rodeo on Saturday or something like Saturday or Sunday. Oh, we can't go to Reno. We're not going to Reno. We're going here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no way. So me and PJ actually just I didn't know what to do. We just ended up going to Los Angeles. He had never been to California. So I was like, okay, we'll go to Cali for 2 days. We go to Cali. We drive up and down like the Malibu Pacific coastline. It was super dope. He had never got to see it. I've been once or twice before. And then from there, we stayed the night in Cali, and it was like a 16-hour drive to Greeley, Colorado. And so we just hoofed it. We slept overnight in like Utah, I think, or something like that, at like a truck stop. I remember seeing these Mormon ladies. They were dressed in like the bonnets, like full bonnets, driving an F-350 Platinum, brand new, hauling hay, full like Amish out. I was like, where's that connection happen? I was like, anyways. But yeah, so we end up meeting them in Greeley, Colorado. Uh, we'll go from Greeley, and over the next 8 days, we drove 5,500 miles. Went through like 7 states and like 6 rodeos, 5 rodeos. And one or two of those rodeos were like 2-night rodeos, or there was like a day gap in between. But literally every single night they'll ride between 6 and 10 p.m. Let's say, there's like a window there.
Yep.
Every rodeo is different. Sometimes
Right.
they're early, but typically it's like between 6 and 10. As soon as they're done riding, they pack up. A lot of times they might not even stay to see who won. They might not even know if they won. Like it's like as soon as they get done,
Yeah.
they have to start
On to the
going.
next one.
We would drive anywhere from like the least amount we drove in one night was like 2 hours. The most we drove was like 8. You'd leave at like you would drive basically until 3 or 4 in the morning, 2 to 4 in the morning, sleep at a gas station somewhere. Me and PJ are sleeping in the car. They got the Capri. We're just honestly, it's some of the best sleep I ever got. I mean, it's crazy. Just
It,
leaning back.
it's fascinating coming from like you don't really think about it, but somebody that's not a part of that and that lifestyle and then just like jumping into it, like I can only imagine the the things you learned and being introduced to like you're going from one extreme to another. It's not like
Yeah.
it's one thing if you're jumping into something that's kind of moderate, but you're jumping into an extreme. Rodeo is very extreme. When it comes to living on the road, it's literally living on the road.
Yeah, and the crazy part is you see, I equate it to other sports. I know a lot of people in a lot of different sports, whether it be they work for the sports, they play the sports, whatever. And for the most part, even the guys up to the top level are just like everything's catered for. I mean, dude,
Yeah.
if you're on a competitive baseball, soccer, basketball, football team in middle and high school, you're like driving travel buses, you're doing this. You're not even out of school yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even at the college level, then you're talking, you get the NIL deals now and all these different things. It really put it in perspective to me when I did eventually see these guys at the NFR. And it's like, oh shit, yeah, these guys at the very top of the level are literally just sleeping in their cars, riding around, a minus maybe like Stetson, right? Or you know what I mean? Like maybe a couple guys, like a handful out of
Yeah.
all disciplines. They're just,
It's
I'm not just talking bull riders. All of them are just,
the first time I rode at the Cleveland Cavaliers Stadium, um, and I remember then that was when LeBron, was playing for Cleveland,
right.
and I remember I think it was me and Keith Hall, and we showed up and like we drove all night because we were on a run. So we got there that morning and like I brushed my teeth in the parking lot of this stadium. And I'm like, I bet you LeBron's never done this.
Exactly. I mean, that nails it perfect because it's just like even when you're there and you see those guys, you're at these little podunk rodeos sometimes, and like those guys are here because they need the money. You know what I mean? Like they call
Yeah,
it, this is the only rodeo they can go to that night. You might see the best of the best at some little small rodeo,
yeah,
and then you'll see them again and that, there's 30,000 people in an arena sold out.
yeah.
So, after following them around that week, I basically followed them around all week. I didn't interview them once. We did some B-roll shots. PJ rode in the van or the truck with them for like a 6-hour stretch to the Dakotas, just different stuff like that. And I do these interviews at the end. Well, throughout the week, I'd been writing questions, and I had like 20 questions or so, starting from wherever when they started rodeoing until where we're at now. And at this time, all 3 of them had never been to the NFR. All 3 of them had just started on their PRCA cards like within the last year or two. Like the rookie season they were just coming off their rookie seasons. And at the time I went, they all were like 17 to 25. All three of
Yeah.
them were like in there, and they take the top 15 for, those who don't know. So they were kind of good running, but still, like, I'm there. I just met, I didn't even know till I got there, and Colin introduced me that Tristan was on the winning team at our rodeo.
Yeah.
I didn't put two and two together. And Hayes won High Mark Ride at our rodeo in the past couple months. I was just like, I didn't even put two together. I'm
That's
out in
awesome.
Greeley, Colorado, at the back of it's like, oh, these are those guys. And I do the interviews. Well, I do Cullen's first because I know him the best, and I figured it'd be the most comfortable. I do his. It's like 20, 30 minutes on. We're in the back of the Capri. It's 98 degrees in North Dakota. It's noisy. It's loud. I have this one little camera. I'm like, oh, this is going to be kind of shot, basically. There's just a humming noise in the background. Nothing you can really do about it. I do his. Then I do Hayes. Hayes is struck me as, like, over the course of the week we were there, I got to know him. He was like a more outgoing kind of guy, more talkative, did some like modeling photos and this and that, some other stuff, So, uh, and then I saved Tristan's for last because throughout the week, hadn't talked to him really, very shy, kind of stuck to himself, his girlfriend on the phone a little here and there, but not really that way. We went out to go have some beers. He's like, I'm going to stay here. Nothing huge. I was like, makes sense, whatever. I know a lot of those guys, but just didn't get to know him or talk to him really. So I thought his interview was going to be like 10 minutes or something. I'm thinking this guy's not going to talk. He seemed real shy. It ended up being like over an hour long, I think. He ended up just telling me so much about his life. I mean, it was like two different people. Like, it caught me so off guard. Like, the camera ran out of footage at one point. The mic turned off. I was just sitting there listening to him. It was just like, I got goosebumps just thinking about it now. I remember that moment so vividly. It was just like, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I came here. This is why I did this. Even if I use 5 minutes of this interview, like, the feeling I got just from hearing him talk and just being there, I was like, if he's at an interview or if he goes on, like, on a podcast or he does this, those guys don't talk like that. It's like
Yeah.
you're talking about guys who, for the most part are cowboys. The majority of them are bull riders. And the stigma around them obviously is tough guy, this guy, that guy. You don't see a lot of talkative, I mean, very like outgoing, very personality type
And when it
guys.
is, I feel like, and the PBR has kind of lately been on this front. It's almost a soap opera. Like, they try to, it's not authentic. It's
Yeah,
not like if you look at the series lately that's came up with the teams, PBR teams are awesome, but the series they've put out they're not drawing on what's authentic about this lifestyle.
not
They're very
real.
much edited and very much produced um to produce some sort of reaction
Correct.
instead of like what's real, what's authentic, what are these people really going through, and like that's one thing that I love about what you're doing, especially in the docu-series, like you're doing it instead of this, freaking soap opera, that look, if you want to go
Yeah.
watch that, go watch freaking Netflix,
Right.
go watch something else. Like, there's something about this demographic that's authentic and people love that.
Yeah.
Look, there are people that love both sides, but I would say that it's at least more true to the roots of this culture than trying to produce this stuff that's just not genuine. So yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, and I think that was my thing. Of like, I've had some opportunities maybe to like interview or film some bigger name people and so forth. And I was like, I don't want to just interview someone I've never talked to really and
Yeah, right.
ask them questions. You know what I mean? Like, for the documentary, it's more about like getting to know them and
Yeah,
open them up. In these next episodes I have coming out, the second one of Tristan, his mom passed away, my dad passed away.
yeah,
And I bring it up briefly in the first one I released, but we
yep.
talk about it in our interviews at this year's NFR with him. And it's you'll never get that. You 100%, you'll never hear that guy talk like that. You'll never hear him. You'll never know he had that side to him, I think. And it's because I think the relationship me and him have built. There's a moment where we're in the hotel and we're both just sitting there. We can't even talk. We're almost like crying. You know what I mean? And you can hear it. You can hear it in my voice. You can hear it and see it in his voice. Actually, when I did his interview, I had Dustin Muncie, the one who kind of helped me start all this. He was in the room there. He also lost his father in that year. So,
Dang.
there's a whole real world aspect to that, to where you don't draw that out of someone just doing an interview or a podcast with them.
And if you do, like, it's off. It's actually awful. Like,
Yeah,
and again, people will try to do that, and I don't like it. Like, I mean, we see this, and look, I'm not going to use examples, but there's plenty of them out there, and that stuff you have to respect. Like, there's real life struggles,
yeah,
and to just use that to get viewership and to get likes, it's just not real. And it honestly does a disservice to me. It does a disservice to the kingdom of God and, you know, uh, the hope that we have in Christ when we just
right,
start to use these real life struggles to, push content out there. But like what you're saying, when you're focused on individuals and it's not just these clips, it's not clips that you're doing, you're actually following these people. When I see you going around following these people, I don't just look at, oh, this is cool content. I look at, man, this guy came from a world disconnected and he's getting to get an experience and go through this with individuals. And there's a journey there that, dude, that's what we love as rodeo
right,
athletes. Like, I'll never forget the millions of miles that I have put on the road with these guys and that I haven't just lived life in clips. I've lived life in the mud. I've lived life at the highs and the lows, everywhere in
yep,
between. And that's cool. And that's something like to be able to keep these films, like that's something I imagine Tristan will look back to. You'll look back to it. It won't just be the production. It'll be the memories that are made, along the way. And it's something
right,
that you can't get in true genuine form. You can't get the true genuineness of it in film itself,
right.
but you can get close to it when you're doing something like you're doing, opposed to, hey, let's put these series together to get a lot of likes. Like there's something real about it, and I think it really comes to the surface in instances like that where it's like, dude, you're also sitting there struggling. And like
Yeah,
when you guys talk about it in your documentaries, it's very evident that this is real. Like you guys aren't faking emotions. Like these are real struggles that you're going through. Like life life is
sucks.
tough.
Yeah,
It's tough, and at times it really does suck. But having people around you that will go through that suck with you, man, it means the
way better.
world of difference. So, when I see that, I'm like, that's cool that somebody outside of this world gets to come in and actually taste that goodness, that we get to experience. And oftentimes we take for granted, but it's kind of cool. So,
Yeah, and it was. I talk about it in the documentary a lot. It went from what I thought was going to be these 15 to 30-minute interviews of all of them, to that was summer of 2022, to Tristan eventually making the NFR at the end of 2022.
yeah.
So now I'm like, well, I
Not
just
just
can't put
making
out,
it kicking butt at the NFR in 2022.
dude. And I told those guys, and not that it was a passive joke, but they were all 5-10 spots away at the time when I went out there, and I was like, you guys make it to NFR just like I did this trip. I'll spend every last dime I got. I don't care what I got to do, who I got to sell, what I got to, whatever. I'll sell something I own to make it to the NFR this year. I'll sleep in the fucking streets of Las Vegas. I don't care. If you make it, I
You
will be
would
there.
you wouldn't be the first person.
Oh, I've done it before. I had been to the NFR twice before for a weekend for partying purposes, also. But what I mean. But I had never been there for this. And he goes, as the summer goes on, he starts going on a tear, goes crazy. As you know, he makes it to the NFR into 2022. I film him. The hopes were to follow him the next summer and film that. And then that would be the end of that film to kick off them going into the NFR in 2023 if they were to make it at a time. And this is all like the whole direction of all these films and documentaries is a constant moving needle because I don't like if they
Yeah.
make it, then what do I do? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So for instance, that summer I still had Cullen and Hayes' interviews. Well, Tristan made it to the NFR, so I put his film out and I'm
Hmm.
still sitting on all this footage of Cullen and Hayes, and I had been texting them, calling them, seeing them, meeting up with them over the year, the next summer, and I was going to follow them again and do the same thing. Well, middle of summer of 2023, when I was finalizing things, um, we run into my dad passing away and then Tristan's mom passing away within a couple months of each other, midsummer, early fall. And that put a hold on a lot of things. But I felt this constant urge that I still at this point hadn't put out the documentary, and I was like, you know what, pity party on yourself. Me and Tristan had a conversation after his mom passed away. It really, I think we talked about it in the documentary a little, kind of put a gear in both of our asses. And that's what's cool, like I followed this kid around to make a video for him. And then I met him twice in my life at this point, once in the summer and once at the NFR. Realistic. And now they're both for a week at a time or whatever, but
Sure.
even then you're talking 14 days I've seen this kid, whatever, right?
Right.
And here we are, me and him both having probably one of the most deep conversations we had with anybody else because we were both going through the same thing almost. One of our parents had passed away. So
Yeah.
that was like so surreal. I was like, and then it kind of like, it was exciting, but then daunting almost. I was like, see, this has got to go in the film, but like, now I got to push it back almost, you know what I mean? It's like, but it's a part of the story, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all real. Like you said, this all really happened, it's all true events. And, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this one out before NFR or before the season ends this year. And this was like probably like 2 months, a month before the season was going to end. And lo and behold, Tristan's like number 4 in the world. Hayes is like number 11 in the world. And Cullen's like 15, 16. So I'm like, and I had basically had their parts done already. And I was just going to put it out as is. The summer run and then their venture, they haven't made it to the NFR. Well, now they're like looking like they're going to make it to the NFR. And I'm like, okay. So I'm talking to them like every week. I'm checking the rankings like all the time. It's up, it's down, it's here, it's there. And, a couple weeks before, Tristan and Hayes were basically a shoe-in. Hayes was like 10th or 11th. It would have been, but by a substantial money figure, really. And then Tristan hadn't even rode in 2 or 3 weeks because he had just been sitting at like
Okay.
3 and 4,
Yeah. Yeah.
just trying to stay healthy. And Cullen, and we talk about it in the film, I'll come in the documentary, the last interview I did with him. He didn't even know. I basically asked him, explain the moment when you found out you're going to the NFR. He's like, oh, actually, I didn't even know until someone told me. In my mind, because I seen Tristan and Hayes look at the standings on their phone all
Yeah.
day, every day. The day of, like the last final day when there's ever the last rodeo, they're just refresh. He was like, yeah, I was like 15th, but I had 4 buddies that were all going to this one rodeo and blah, blah, blah. He was like, I assume one of them had to do was like cover a bull and he would have been out of the 15th.
Yeah. Right.
So he just like stopped watching it on Sunday. They released it on Tuesday. He just assumed he was going to be out. He's like, I tried hard enough. He gets a phone call. He's like, he's going to the NFR. And he's like, he thought he was the 16th man at first, the
That is.
reserve.
Yeah.
He was like, no, you're the 15th guy. And he was like, so he didn't even know. So that's like the difference of these guys. You know what I mean? It's like,
Man, it's crazy how tight it gets.
dude, it's insane.
It
Just
is that
thousands.
that last week because you're dealing with you can only go to I don't know how many of the I don't rodeo but I know there's like you can only go to so many rodeos so
Right.
it's like that last week it's like some guys have they may have 4 events left or whatever and another guy may only have one or he may be done he's already used all of
Right.
his and so really probably I don't know if it's like 13 to 20 or whatever but there's a good amount of spots there that are just kind of open.
Right. No, yeah. And that's the thing too, is people like Tristan and those guys at the top aren't riding either.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So
So
yeah, you're right. The competition there. I'm sure that planning out the end of your run is probably more important than the beginning
I touch on this in the documentary in these next episodes coming out. I strongly believe, and I would like, hopefully, I get to a point where I can dive full time into like documenting the rodeo world and stuff like
Yeah.
that, where I can do these kind of, tests, I would call them. But I am for sure, for certain, there are guys who would make it to the NFL all day if they planned, traveled, and organized, were more organized correctly in how they enter, where they enter, how they get there, everything like that. It's a for sure. I don't know what it is, a huge factor in it, I should say. And like you said, especially when you get down towards the end, like it's a chess game, because then these guys have, there's like a thing in rodeo, and I just found it after 2 years of being in this. I just found this out when I was in Texas a couple months ago. Hayes talked to me about that you can like trade with guys.
Yeah.
You can like
Yeah.
trade. So now that's like a whole nother. You like,
That,
hey, buddy, let me come here and I'll let you go there. And we're not talking like, oh, you go here one night, I go there. No, it's like, oh, instead of going to Nevada, you got to go to Pennsylvania or this and that. So it's not like a simple decision, really. You know what I mean? Like so like it's a huge chess game, and they do it for months on end.
right.
80, 90 rodeos or whatever. So that's a huge part of it. Huge part is just that dialing in. That's a lot of time what they spend their days. I'm sure guys at the top, there's companies, they've mentioned there's companies that'll do it for them, but it's so on the move all the time.
Yeah.
You call in, you might not get called back. Someone might bail, they call you back. You might go here, you might go there. It's like, and then, and I won't delve too deep in this because it's a loophole, but then there's like there's the PRC, a year-long event, but then there's like this circuit
The
finals and
circuits.
that.
Yeah.
I just found out that like, oh yeah, you can win $1 million at this, and that. I'm like, what is that? I've never heard of it. It was like I don't even remember. It was like a Dodge something. I was like, that's part of the PRC. They're like, yeah, well, it doesn't count towards your point system, but it's this. I'm like,
Yeah.
super confusing, I think. But I eventually I would like to just like put on a huge whiteboard exactly how they do it or figure it out.
It would have to be a big
Yeah.
whiteboard.
Oh,
I
it'd be
don't want to
huge.
I don't want to give too much up because I really hope that people that are watching this has intrigued them enough to go watch your documentary.
Right.
We're gonna get back on here. We're gonna do this again.
Absolutely.
Like tell people a little bit about where they can find you, your documentary. How can they get, connected to Cosmic Cowboy Productions?
So right now we have the first documentary out, the Chronicle One, features Tristan Hutchings basically from the summer of 2022 until his NFR run at the end of 2022, and ties in a little bit of his eventual run into the 2023 NFR where he made it again. That one's out now on YouTube. Cosmic Cowboys Productions is our YouTube channel. It's called the Cowboy Chronicles. You can't miss it. It's the very first one there. That's our first one out. It's about 2 hours long. Make sure you get some popcorn. And then I have 3 more in the pipeline right now that have all been filmed, produced, and are just in the back end of editing. This will feature Cullen Telfer from the summer of 2022 when I first followed them. He hadn't been to the NFR until a year and a half later when he makes it to the 2023 NFR. And then I went to Vegas and followed him around. And then the third, or the second one, which will be of the next 3 that'll be released, will be Hayes Waite. Also followed him around the summer of 2022 until he also made it to the NFR in 2023. And then the last one will be Tristan Hutchings' second film. This will follow him after the 2022 run until the 2023 NFR run. Very as good as they all will be, that one will be so surreal. I think it'll really put it in perspective to anyone who I think wants to get into rodeo or is interested in rodeo or just wants to hear a real good, not even a sports story, man. It's just a human badass story. He goes from there's a clip of him in the Capri camper summer of 2022. He's like, I don't own shit. He's like, I own this camper and that's it. He's like, this is my home. He's like, blah, 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 this and that. And I asked him, I was like, what would you do if you eventually won the NFR? He's like, I'd buy a home. That's all I care about. I'm gonna buy a home. And he says, where I'm from, we don't have swimming pools, so I might get a swimming pool.
That's cool.
Fast forward to earlier this year, February 2024. I went after the 2023 NFR. I went to his brand new home in Stephenville, Texas, which has a swimming pool.
Yep.
And it was so surreal, man. I got goosebumps thinking about it now, just like walking around. I'm like, he did it. He sat there. He had won like 30 grand that year before. He had no money, and he's like, I'm gonna win this. And he put, I don't want to put, he put a couple $100,000 cash down on the house.
Heck yeah.
Put it that way, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it was so surreal, and it just and I talk about in the documentary, it's such a motivator, like for me. And like I said, I don't care who watches it, if you watch it, if you don't watch it, it is such a blast and motivator for me to keep going and doing it. I love it so much. So the last one will be Tristan. I'm hoping to have all three of those starting to release by the summertime of this year, where
Okay.
I'm hoping to be following them in the summer run again this year. I didn't get to last year with all the things going on in my life. But this year I'm hoping to, I got a minivan now, finally got a vehicle. I plan on going out there and following them around for another 10 days. And, you know, hopefully they make it back to the NFR again this year, where I'll go back again if I got to, just like I did the last 2 years.
Oh man, their hands. I'm sure they'll be back. So
no, and man, because I filmed them in February, basically the start of the season. These guys are just, you can just see it in them. I've seen it the past 2 years. They just keep getting better and better, and they're more focused. And now that they're like, oh, I got the house, I got this, they're like, okay, now they feel confident. I feel like they didn't think they could do it when I first met them. None of them really felt like they could do it because they hadn't done it. But yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns in there between the three guys. You know, it'd be some real cool stories coming out. But yeah, check it out on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram as well to keep up updates for the rest of the films coming out over the summer.
heck yeah, guys. Make sure that you follow them. You also produce all of these podcasts. Lately
Yep.
they've been kind of over Zoom. I've been down in injury. Here in a few months, we're going to be hitting the road. Sebastian, you've been doing a lot, and I really am looking forward to seeing what the next 5 to 10 years looks like for you, and you kind of continuing to grow this and really do what you love, which is a testament to the sport that we all love. So
Absolutely.
guys, it's been great, talking with Sebastian. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, make sure you go, even if you didn't, go and check out Cowboy Chronicles on YouTube. It's a really cool documentary. So see you guys later.
See you, Kyle.